Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number 1 in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
I know it's a bad idea to eat Doritos at my computer, but I can't help it. They're so good. All right, guys, you're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. We got no time to waste. Let's dive right into it. hope you guys had a really good Thanksgiving with your families, with some turkey dinner. I hope you guys had plenty to eat. And if you didn't, I hope you at least made it out to Boston Market. I'll tell you what, that turkey roll they sell, very underrated when you're a bachelor. But those days are long gone, though remembered fondly, at least for the turkey. So what we're going to do, I have some van casting this week, and I don't have a ton of time for this portion, but I do want to put my ear to the ground, the internet, and do the old school fail bag. Now, back when TCR was first starting, many years ago, what I did was, nobody was writing in because it was still like a brand new thing. So I would just go out to, at the time it was GameFAQs.com. I would go out and get comments and just read them as if they were written directly into the show. And of course they weren't. It was all a big lie. But that was hence the name, the fail bag. So what I'm going to do is something very similar, because I think doing so helps me kind of put my ear to the ground, really be a bit more in touch with what's on the forefront, or at the very least gives me something good to talk about. Okay, first up we have our first email from Anon. He writes in, "What's the best Star Wars game, and why is it Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2? Mara Jade should have been in the new movies. Maybe they would have been good." Well, I'll tell you what, Anon. There were a lot of those Star Wars games from a long time ago. There were some really good ones. I'm trying to label the era, but I can't. I can't think of the era name off the top of my head. But I would say Jedi Outcast was the one I had the most fun with. And I think a lot of those games where they kind of dug deep themselves and made up new story to go along with what was canon, I think a lot of that stuff ended up being better than what actually was canon. For example, Knights of the Old Republic. I mean, that had some good stuff in it. So yeah, I never played Dark Forces 2 though, which is kind of a shame because I have the strategy guide for Dark Forces 2, the physical copy of Primus Dark Forces 2 strategy guide, which I got for like $1.50 at the used bookstore. I was just out there, and that used bookstore has since closed down, but it was just like one day out looking at the stacks. I was like, yeah, I get this. I'll probably get it on GOG at some point. Why not? Alright, here's one for you. Pinball video games. They don't get better than the Crush series, right? I mean, out of pinball video games rather than proper simulators. I don't know, Anon, I gotta say, for me, and I'm sure this is clouded by nostalgia, but it's always going to be Epic Pinball. Epic Pinball is going to be the definitive experience for video pinball for me. Although I've got to say, the tables that came out for Pinball FX2 came pretty darn close. As a matter of fact, I think if I were a youngster these days, I would have to say the Pinball FX2 tables are the best of the best. I mean, even if they're not based in reality, I mean, you can't have a real pinball table with flames and people and whatever, but, you know, I guess you could come close. Pinball FX2, I guess, is the modern example. If I were to remove nostalgia from the equation, it would have to be Pinball FX2, or I guess Pinball FX3 as it would be these days. Here we go. Worst retro ad campaign. Which retro video game platform had the worst ads? And in this email, we are treated to an image of a classic Neo Geo magazine ad. Now, Neo Geo ran an ad that read as follows: "If you're still playing Sega, NEC, or Nintendo, you're nothing but a weenie. But if you're playing the legendary high-powered Neo Geo system, you're a real hot dog." Alright, Neo Geo, we get it. Okay. You got a hot dog, and then you got one with the mustard and stuff, and whatever. Very weird. I have to say, let's see, worst video game ads. There were some weird ones on TV, but I don't think that, like, the weirdest ones I didn't see until I got older, and I started to see them after the fact on the internet. Really, the weirdest one I can think of is probably, I want to say Forsaken, but I think that might just be because I'm thinking about it, because I just picked up a copy of that game. Another really weird one was Death Trap Dungeon. Death Trap Dungeon had a TV ad of like a BDSM lady. It was very strange, and they tried to use that to sell like an adventure game that played similar to the early Tomb Raider games. Very strange. That was a weird time in gaming. Alright, guys and gals. Ugh. Let's do this. Let's head over to the Vancast. Now we're going to Tarantino it back to Monday. Is this Monday? I want to say Monday afternoon. Oh well. Let's go back before Thanksgiving, shall we? Good morning. I'm taking two of the Vancast. It's Monday afternoon. How are you guys doing? You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Man, it feels good. I have a nice early day heading home. It's cold though. It stopped being brisk last week and it started being just freezing cold. So that's where we're at right now. It's Thanksgiving week. So by the way, if you're listening to this, Thanksgiving's already coming on. So I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Ate 2 fistfuls of turkey and I had a tryptophan nap. Good stuff. I got family coming in from out of town, so there's guaranteed to be no time left to play video games. I think last year around this time was when I have to correct me if I'm wrong. I'll have to go check. I think this was when I got H1Z1. I think so. I think it was right in the middle of Thanksgiving. I picked that up in a sale, and then that was my jam for a while after that. Man, has it really been an entire year? It can't have been. Maybe that was a summer game. I don't know, guys. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go back and double check on that one, though, because I'm not 100% sure on that. That feels like it was more of a summer game. Something doesn't quite add up on that timeline. Anyway, so last night I had one of these moments where you look forward all week to playing games, and then the time comes, the kids are in bed, go up to my office, sit down on my couch, because I have a couch in my office now, which is pretty awesome. And there's no energy left in me to play games. It's just all gone. But I did get some. I find in those moments when I really want to play games but I don't have the energy to, those are when like the quick play games come out. So I fired up my Nintendo 64. I don't know what possessed me to do that. I haven't played that thing in a little while. And I put in Perfect Dark. Now just to recap, I do not have... Whoa, hang on. Thick traffic. I do not have the memory expansion for my Nintendo 64. And Perfect Dark is one of a couple of games that requires it. Perfect Dark and also Donkey Kong 64 needs it. So if you try and play Perfect Dark without it, what happens is you get this sub-menu. So you're locked out of most of the game, but it will let you play some bots matches. It'll let you play like a multiplayer game and some challenges. You know, some simple go fight the bots kind of thing. Not King of the Hill, but I don't know, a couple of different modes that are basically just bots matches. Fired it up, did some simple bots matches, and called it a day. Felt good. Every time I play that game, though, it really drives home how awkward it is to play a first-person shooter on a console if you've been a PC guy for as long as I have. It's hard, man. You know, you see them yellow, glowy bots down a hallway, and you're like, all right, time to open fire. And the reticle just starts going left and right, and you're like, I can't zero in. It just feels unnatural. And you finally draw a bead and gun them down. It's just the time between spotting the target and locking on the target is just too long. It's too long for a PC gamer to tolerate. But it was cool, man. I enjoyed it anyway because I wanted Perfect Dark around the time it came out, and I didn't get it until like a couple weeks ago. So that's pretty cool. Oh, hang on one second. Listen close. That's good, man. It's Coca-Cola. That's always been my brand of sody pop of choice. It's the classic. Alright, what was I talking about? Perfect Dark. Yeah, so I gave that a go-round. The reality is I played Perfect Dark enough to remember that I still want to get the RAM expansion. The only other RAM expansion story I have is like 5 plus years ago when I could still find video games at the thrift store. One of the games I found was Donkey Kong 64. But I was with a friend and he was like, don't buy it because it has the RAM expansion, so don't buy it. But looking back on it, it was Donkey Kong 64 for like 70 cents. I should have bought it anyway. But that's okay. It doesn't matter. That was many years ago. I can get myself a copy of Donkey Kong 64 on the eBays for like a week's allowance or something. It's not too bad.
But I played Perfect Dark, and after I finished with Perfect Dark, I put in Jet Force Gemini. Jet Force Gemini is a game that I remember very well, so I was looking forward to getting again. It's a reacquisition, if you will, as opposed to, getting something new. I remember that game distinctly, that the multiplayer shooting was very, very good. And I remember, for a very long time, holding it in a higher esteem than GoldenEye. GoldenEye was the game that everybody liked, multiplayer shooters on the Nintendo 64. I remember even at church, like the youth groups at church, they would like get TVs together in a room and they would play GoldenEye all night in the basement of the church. Like, that was a popular game, man. But I remember Jet Force Gemini being better. Now, that could have just been because I didn't own GoldenEye. I think we rented it, but I didn't own it. I remember the maps being better in Jet Force. I remember them being more open. It was a third-person shooter, so, it's certainly going to feel different. But anyway, this was the first time playing it since then. I put it in, and I sat and watched the introduction. And the second I took control, phone rang and I had to go. Kids needed me, that's life. Had to go. We'll get back to that another day. Introduction sure looked cool, though. I remember watching that introduction for the first time when it came out and thinking, this is a game that kind of looks like Space Quest. If you put Space Quest onto the Nintendo 64, it would and made it like a 3D game in that early or mid-90s 3D boom, it would look a lot like Jet Force Gemini. Just saying, guys. But I don't know. I didn't get to play the game, so more on that later. That's kind of burning me, actually, just a little bit. In other Nintendo 64 news, I ordered a game called Forsaken for the Nintendo 64. Kind of a weird game. I played the demo off of PC Gamer back when it came out, and I remember it being a clone of Descent. First-person airplane or shooting, or 360 degrees rotational, like Doom clone, but they added a Y-axis, I guess. I don't know. But that has been a long time, and I haven't played it since then, so we'll see when it shows up. We'll see how it is. I'm looking forward to it. I know that the oddly sexual ads in the magazines is weird, I would imagine, based on what I remember, if you're going to put a magazine ad for Forsaken, it would have like a spaceship on it. It would have like I don't know, outer space or something, or maybe like, I don't know, maybe like something like an R-type kind of situation. But no, we had like a scantily clad female, and that's how they decided to sell the game. What are you gonna do? That's the 90s. The fact that I don't remember one single person telling me that they've played it since then has me a little worried. But I played that demo, in the 90s, and I kind of want to get that resolved. So now I'm going to get a copy of Forsaken for the Nintendo 64, and we'll see how it goes. And I will let you know. Well, I'm starting to question, though, where I played that. It's occurring to me, was that even like a PC game as well? Because I only really ever remember... Alright, guys. I'm in the car, so I don't have Google in front of me. But I want to know what other systems, apart from the Nintendo 64, Forsaken came out for. I want to say the PS1 as well, but that still doesn't explain where I played the demo. If it was on the PS1, maybe it was on like a jam-packed demo kind of disc, because I had a few of those back in the day, but I don't know, not many. Whatever. That game's a ways off. It'll show up in the mail, and we'll talk about it. And there you go. I still have the... What else did we do? I feel like there was another... I played some Steam games, but not a whole lot to say about that. I played a game called Cubemen 1 and 2. Cubemen 2 was a game I played with Alex Swingle. a good while back. Multiplayer tower defense, but also a very simple game. Not really a whole lot I can say about it. Played that last night while I had the TV on. That was good fun. And now I'm on the way home, and I'm going to be busy with family stuff for the rest of the day. So I want to get back to Tiny Tank. I really had I had a drive going with Tiny Tank, man. I played it, a few days in a row, and I really got some time into it, and I got somewhere. I feel like the first real stumbling block, and now I can't find time to play it anymore. I don't know. We will see. It's not the game's fault. I'm just getting distracted. I want to sit down and play Tiny Tank. I also want to play Siphon Filter too. I bought that. Haven't really been able to dig into that yet. What about Too Extreme? Played that a little bit. Lots of stuff I want to sit down and dig into. It's weird. This is a weird thing. I'm building up like a physical game backlog, very similar to the way a Steam backlog works, and I've never experienced that before. Even in the old days when I was a kid, I used to buy, before I guess I wasn't a kid. How old was I? Probably like 15 or 16. The NES was already far behind. It was an old system at this point, but it wasn't yet fashionable to be a retro gamer. So I would go down to this toy store. We had this used toy store in town, and they would sell Nintendo games for $5 a piece. And I did that every week for a very long time, and I built up quite a collection back in those days. Now, mind you, these games are all but gone. A couple are left, but that collection is a lifetime ago. In those days, I was able to get a lot of games that have since gone up in price. Just because, again, it wasn't... James Rolfe hadn't come around yet. Everybody was on dial-up internet. It wasn't, it wasn't the thing to be collecting for the NES like it is now. I can't remember where I was going with that, to be honest with you. Right, yes. Even in those days when I built up a huge collection, I didn't let a backlog pile up. The whole concept of backlog didn't become real to me until Steam came around. All right, hang on a second. Hang on, my friends. All right, so off we go. Home again, rinkety-dink. And I guess that's all I have to report for now. I've got an AliExpress package that I'm just dying to show up. Just dying for. I can't wait. The thing that sucks about AliExpress is the amount of time for the packages to show up, because they're coming from China. It's just unreal. That's a little bit tough for me to deal with. So you got to make sure and buy something you're still going to be interested in a month. All right, let's throw it back to the ever so comfortable Panther Studios. I'll see you guys there.
Not yet. There we go. Now we're back in the ever so comfortable Panther Studios. I am your host, Critical Failure. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Look, guys, this is just it's a part of the show where I like to thank the patrons. This is a Patreon sponsored program, and these guys who put just the penance up, it makes a huge difference in my life, and I offer them so little in return. So I do like to give personal shout-outs. And they are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, Six Health of Fury, and the Cartridge Brothers. Look, guys, I wish I could give you more as patrons. But I'm making sure the show gets out every week, and as soon as it gets done, I give it to these guys. So if you'd like to get TCR just a little bit earlier, become a patron. Otherwise, don't worry about it. I'll see you Monday morning. All right, boys and girls, let's go back to the Vancast.
It is Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning before Thanksgiving. I'm getting ready to drive to work. What's going on, everybody? Oh, I got a little extra sleep last night. Not much, but a little bit. And I'll tell you what, it really makes a difference. I can feel it in the way I move and think. And it's good. It's something I needed. Body needs to recharge, man. Sometimes it's easy to overlook that when you're really busy and there aren't any hours in the day. So you try and find a couple extra hours in the day for yourself. Last night I got to sleep. Feels good. So I'm off to work now. So let's talk about some video games. Double Dragon came in for the Sega Master System. I bought a cart-only edition. Cost me about $10, and it showed up. It was dirty. Like the case had dirt on it. So I really had to take my time and clean it up. But yeah, that's pretty awesome. The unboxing that I filmed, for some reason I'm not happy with it. So I'm probably going to refilm something, I don't know. But anyway, be that as it may, I got to play Double Dragon for the Master System. This is means a couple things. I got to play it with my son, multiplayer, which was awesome. We loved it. We played, I think the only other beat 'em up we've played together is one of those Beats of Rage games for the Dreamcast. It's like a homebrew Streets of Rage kind of game called Rhythm of Destruction. It was a game, I think it might have even been the first game I ever burned for my Dreamcast, which I burned years and years ago. And he dug it, so we played that a couple of times. This was fun because you have as many continues as you want. Kind of like River City Ransom, where you can just keep playing until you feel like you're done. Until you get to the last stage. In the last stage, they disable that, and once you get game over, it's just game over. Which is kind of jarring at first. It's kind of weird. You get to the last stage after, 20 plus continues. And then you get game over, and it's like, well, where's my continues? What happened? But I bought a loose cart, so I can't look in the instruction manual and see. I have to find that kind of stuff out, either through Google searching or through experimentation. So that's Double Dragon. A good game on the Sega Master System. I've got to say, the NES version, I might be in the minority on this one, but I think the NES version of the original Double Dragon is far and away the better game. Far and away. It doesn't have simultaneous two-player mode, but it looks better, sounds better, plays better. And trying to press both buttons at the same time on the Sega Master System controller in order to perform the jump kick is the most awkward and unpleasant feeling I've experienced yet on the Sega Master System. It's terrible. It's terrible. However, playing with a friend is fun. This also means I've hit all of my collecting goals. I set out to get 3 specific games: Tiny Tank for the PS1, Double Dragon for the Master System, and Altered Beast for the Master System. Got all 3 of those games, and I played all 3 of those games. Of those 3, Tiny Tank has been my favorite. It's fun. It's nostalgic. It's the only one of the 3 that I've owned previously. And I'll go back to it. Altered Beast was also pretty fun. But as far as I'm concerned, the Altered Beast experience for me on the Sega Master System just reads as, hey, buy the Genesis version. It's like a stripped-down bare version of Splatterhouse. I think Splatterhouse 1 and Altered Beast play very, very similar. And I've been in kind of a Splatterhouse kick over the past couple weeks. So that makes Altered Beast an attractive game for me. I don't know. Double Dragon for the Master System is going to be a shelf dressing game. I doubt I'll play much of that in the future. So if I get out the Sega Master System and I want to play 2 players, it's probably going to be Rampage or high score battles in Hang On. I doubt we'll be putting in Double Dragon to do our, at least between my son and I, to do our multiplayer fighting. If we want to do 2-player beat 'em up games, we'll probably go back to Beats of Rage on the Dreamcast, or I'll get my Nintendo, my NES hooked up, and we'll play good old River City Ransom. He's never played River City Ransom yet. That's one of my all-time favorite games. I think that would also be, a good time. Hey, here, let me introduce you to this amazing game where you can beat people up, take their money, and go buy muffins at the mall. I really want to do that now. My Nintendo, my original NES, it's still not hooked up in my upstairs big console room. My little office, which has now become my big console room. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that because I kind of want to keep my NES downstairs. I know they sell. Oh man, that's bright. Hang on a second. Driving. I've considered this clone console. I don't know what it's called, but there's a really cheesy clone console that you can get for $16. I've considered buying one of those and then just using my own first-party controllers on it, just so that I have the NES in two places. I'm not above a clone console, especially since Hemrock picked me up a copy of the clone Famicom, and it has worked beautifully. Beautifully. Yeah, a good clone console, that does the job, nothing wrong with it, man. There really isn't. I know clone consoles, they strike a chord with the OG collectors, you guys who played these games when you were a kid. When you put the game in, you want to put it into something familiar, right? And then you have small emulation issues across the collection that the clone consoles are going to experience, little compatibility quirks. But you get a situation like this where you can get something for $16 that plays the game, and man, what's wrong with that? Nothing. Especially if you've got the actual controller. I don't know. That's $16 though. And I'm enjoying my PS2 so much right now that I think $16 spent on video games would probably go into PS1, PS2 games. What was I looking at this morning? I was flipping around on eBay on my phone, which is so dangerous. It's so dangerous for me. And I ordered, what did I order? I kind of don't want to say it, but I will anyway. Cool Borders 3. Woo! Cool Borders 3. Make believe you're a snowboarder shredding the powder on the mountaintop. Let me tell you, Cool Borders 3 was a huge game for me, guys. Cool Borders 3 was a game where we got the demo on a demo disc for the PS1. And we got that demo at the very same time we got the demo for Metal Gear Solid. So those are two experiences that are closely tied together for me. We ended up getting both games. My brothers and I were all excited for Metal Gear Solid. We rented that as soon as we could get our hands on it and then bought it later on. And I got Cool Borders 3 that very same Christmas, which I think was just a couple months later. So played the demos at the same time, got the games at very close to the same time. So I would sit down and play Metal Gear Solid through over and over again, and then I would play Cool Borders 3. To give you some context, I was very much into those extreme sports games. I mean, I made that video unboxing 2 Extreme recently. 2 Extreme was another huge game for me. I bought 3 Extreme when it came out, even though it was not good. So, Cool Borders 3. There's a complete in-box for the PS1 for like $350, because, we're talking about the opposite of a desirable game. Nobody cares about the Cool Borders games, which I love. It's so pleasing to want and enjoy a game that the rest of the community does not necessarily find desirable. It doesn't make for good podcasting or video making for sure, but you can certainly go out and get yourself a copy of that game, whatever it may be. And for me, it's Cool Borders 3. Cool Borders 3. Have I been saying 2? Because it's not 2. Cool Borders 3. Yeah. So I ordered that, and I was just looking around at PS2 games. There's some Tekken titles for the PS2 that I want to get. Tekken is a series that I never really liked, and then the past couple, as of recently, I've kind of changed my mind on it. I think the only thing I had against Tekken 7 was that it came out, amidst the Street Fighter 5 craze for me, and then people were kind of arguing back and forth about which is the better game. I was in the Street Fighter 5 camp. But hey man, nothing wrong with the Tekken games. I had Tekken 2 for the PS1, 15 years ago, and that I enjoyed. I've had Tekken 3 forever. I didn't used to like those games, but I dig it now. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe it's just because I have more of an appreciation for fighting games than I used to have. I think it also might be the Dead or Alive games. The Dead or Alive games became favorites for me, and they are, 3D fighting games as opposed to, 2D sprite-based. So I think that might have kicked open the door for other, appreciation of other 3D sprite. Speaking of 3D fighting games, another goal that I think this might be on my next goal sheet, Rival Schools for the PS1. We're talking about PS1 games, man. I'm looking into getting the reacquisitions of games I owned and games my friends owned. Rival Schools was huge in my circle, dude. I had one friend who had it growing up, and his one copy, I think, made the way all around the neighborhood. I remember borrowing it and having these bloody, long, drawn-out tournaments with my older brother in Rival Schools. And then my other friend who lived around the backside of the block, I remember him playing as well. I can't remember if he borrowed it or not, but I certainly remember him jumping in to the fight. And this being like an example of one copy of a game, and everyone in the neighborhood playing that one copy of the game. Rival Schools, and the guy who owned it, Engie, who owned it, ended up selling it for something. I can't remember what he was saving to buy, but he sold it to like a secondhand shop. I can't even remember for how much. Not a lot. Probably like $10 or something. And that was a game that just soared in price. It soared. Let me tell you. There was a time where Rival Schools was like $60, $70, $80, something like that. I think now you can get it for $35, maybe $40. So I think, given that it was a game that I've wanted to acquire and just kind of put out of my mind as unattainable, and now it's attainable, I think I might like to get that again. Have my older brother up, just relive some old battles. I got to play a little Project Justice, when I first got my Dreamcast. Project Justice was one of the first games I got my hands on. And not the same. Not exactly the same. So, want to get that old Rival Schools. That's one of a few games like that. PS1 was a great time for me, man. That's when kids were coming over to play games, and we had the games that were good really made the rounds, and a lot of people were playing them. I think the best example of this, not that it's a great game, but the best example was WWF Warzone, which was a huge game for me. My friend Albert had it, and then I got a copy shortly after, and we played. We would create wrestlers and just have them fight each other. And I remember at one point printing out a big list of the custom wrestlers belonging to everyone in the neighborhood, and we had like a tournament ladder. Oh man, it never got that fun again though. I mean, I went back to that game. My older brother repurchased a copy of it for me for like 99 cents, and I'm pretty sure I still have that. He's like, hey, here's Warzone, remember this? Remember how much fun we had with it? I went back to it and I was like, oh, the magic is gone. I think the second that I tried the SmackDown franchise, I couldn't go back. SmackDown 2 was another really big one, but it's a story not just about the wrestling games that we liked, but it was more about the fact that everybody gathered to play it. Which is weird when I think back on these games, because I would think those sorts of stories would be centered around some of the best fighting games, right? If you read people's blog posts, and you look at gaming materials from classic gamers, usually they'll point you to, oh, we used to play the best games. That wasn't the case with us. We had access to some of the best games, but we tended to gravitate around like just weird one-off games that grabbed us for no real reason. Because at that time, my older brother had a copy of the original Darkstalkers, right? That is an amazing game. But the only person I really ever played the original Darkstalkers with was with my older brother. We played that game. He used to main Felicia, and I used to main Bishaman. until he got Darkstalkers 3, and then he never wanted to go back to the original because it had an expanded roster, but didn't do it for me. Darkstalkers 3 changed Bishaman. Bishaman was different in that game. They ruined my main character, so I didn't like it. I liked 1, he liked 3. That was the end of it. But the point is, Darkstalkers was a game, it was a series that merited being that game that everybody in the neighborhood played. It really did, but that wasn't the case. It didn't really stick with everybody else. I remember playing it with NG some. I remember playing it with my other brother who lived elsewhere some. But it was not one of those games that grabbed everyone. And that wasn't the only example of that either. I'm pretty sure he had, actually I don't remember if he had, I was going to say he had Street Fighter Alpha 3, but I don't remember if that's true or not. I remember we had Toe Ball number 1. We played that some. Well, I really want to think about that now. Which were the games that everyone in the neighborhood played, and which were the games that everyone in the neighborhood should have played? I remember everybody in the neighborhood playing Grand Theft Auto on my PlayStation when that came out. I got a hold of that, and that was like the game for a while. People would come over and play Grand Theft Auto. I got Grand Theft Auto 2 for the PlayStation like as soon as it came out. That was one of the very, very few PlayStation games I paid like the premium price for. I paid like $60 for Grand Theft Auto 2. And then a friend of mine lost it like the weekend after I got it. A friend of mine lost it. Why did I loan it to somebody? That was such a stupid move to loan games out when you were a kid. But this guy lost it, but then he like gave me the cash right after, which was surprising because it was like something he really didn't mean to do. I think his mom found it and smashed it or something. I don't know. I'll never know what happened in that game. But he gave me the money, and then by the time he gave me the money, I don't know why I didn't just go buy another one, but I don't know. I didn't. So that was the end of Grand Theft Auto 2. Wow, that's really... I didn't get Grand Theft Auto 2 again, I think, for another year or so. But shortly after that, they released these collections for the PS1. They came in 3-packs of jewel cases with these white labels. If you look them up on the internet, you can find them. They're really expensive now, but they came out as like bargain collector's editions. And I think they did one for Crash Bandicoot, where it was like 3 Crash Bandicoot games for the PS1. And they did one for Grand Theft Auto that had 1, 2, and it also had the 1969 London expansion for Grand Theft Auto 1. And I bought that. And if I still had that today, that would be big money, but my mother threw it out along with all the rest of my stuff when I was 17. That was cool, man. I missed that collection. Because I haven't played the London expansion of the original Grand Theft Auto since then. And that was, I was 17. I'm 33 now. That'd be great to get again. I remember reading at that time that the London expansion was the first ever expansion pack for a console game. I don't even know if that's true, but that's what they said when they sold it. It was the first, because you bought that disc and you had to have that original Grand Theft Auto to play it. I can think of an earlier example of the console expansion pack. Wing Commander for the SNES and the Wing Commander Secret Missions for the SNES. That's an expansion pack, but they crafted it into its own game. They made it, you could just buy secret missions and it'll work by itself. This was the first game they said where, and it's so stupid now that I think about it. Why did they make it that way? Why? I really haven't seen that happen since, have they? Now we have DLC, so you're not going to see that these days. But it was its own disc. Why couldn't you just put in, London 1969 and have it work? I don't know. Those first couple of Grand Theft Auto games, people tend to look down on them when they look back into the past. Most people seem to think that the Grand Theft Auto series started with Grand Theft Auto 3 when it became 3D. But those top-down games, for me, were the best. They were the best, let me tell you. The original GTA, there was nothing like it. Hang on a second. Hang on. GTA 3 was okay. It was. It was a good game. I'm not going to try and take anything away from that game. People loved it, you know, and then they came Vice City, and that's when it really became like a Hollywood thing. But that first GTA, that was a fringe game. That was a game that not everybody knew about. That was good times, man. It really was. Wow, we're 21 minutes in. This was just supposed to be like... I really only set out to do a Vancast today because I wanted to talk about Double Dragon. And also because it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is tomorrow. So I have a feeling that when I get home tonight is my only chance to get TCR finished this week. So if I don't get it finished on Wednesday night, it's probably not going to get done this week. So when we roll back to Panzer Studios and I do the fail bag, please be patient with me if I don't read your comment. I'm finishing on Wednesday night, so if you leave a comment on Thursday and it doesn't get read, please don't be upset with me. I'll do what I can next week to try and bring it back around. But yeah, TCR during the holidays is a tough thing. I really got to move things around in order to make it work, to keep the shows coming out. But we'll get it. These Vancasts in the morning are fun things for me. They make the commute a lot easier. And now that we're 22 minutes in, and I think I've gone over everything. I don't really have a whole lot else to talk about in terms of the video games. I think I'm ready to hang it up. I played more Cubemen 2 last night and this morning. And Cubemen 2 is a game where it's like, I don't know, I don't think anybody out there, apart from Alex Swingle, I see you out there, buddy. I know you're the exception. I don't think I can really talk about Cubemen and hold anyone's attention. so we'll, except they... All right, we'll broaden it to this. Here's my question of this Vancast for you guys. Anybody out there listening, are there any simple tower defense games that you really like? Because that's what drew me back into the Cubemen games, was just simple computer tower defense. It was something that is a special kind of budget game that I think the PC does better than anyone else. I know there was a surge in popularity of the game Plants vs. Zombies like 5 years ago. And I think that surge in popularity was just people discovering basic tower defense in sort of a cute way. That's what drew me back into Cubemen. So if you play the defense mode, it's just a basic tower defense. And I dug it. It's a good game. So, you know, another really good tower defense game. I know I'm drawing this out even longer. Another really good tower defense game is Sanctum TD. Super Sanctum TD, I think it's called. They made this 3D first-person shooter tower defense multiplayer game that I'm sure cost a lot of money and took a lot of man hours. And they made a sequel to it, Sanctum 2, Wowie Zowie. Better get your hands on that upgrade, son. Better set up the turrets to shoot them mobs. Oh, and by the way, we just made this little one-off 16-bit tower defense game kind of as a promo. You get it free with that little promo game. Better than both of those other games. The crowning jewel of the Sanctum series, Super Sanctum TD, which they sold for 69 cents. They sold it for 69 cents for a while. It's a great game. That's a really good game. At least I remember it being great when it came out. And I seem to remember there being upgrades that ruined it. Like, I played it and I was unlocking things in the unlock tree, and then they pushed out an update that kind of ruined my save, and I never went back to it. I should try that again. I bet if I was willing to start from the beginning again, I bet I would like it. Alright, that's it. This is 24 minutes in, and I'm almost at the office now. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Sometimes just gotta say bye-bye. Call that a day. Alright, boys and girls, bear with me. We're gonna do the Vancast now. It is... actually, this is the normal time I do it, so... it's not as early as I thought it would be. So, oh, right. I did have something specific I wanted to do for the fail bag this time out. I wanted to go back and read Hemrock's email from the start of the show. Now, when TCR started, it was I took MP3s and I would write what I called liner notes, which were basically just like the description, the modern, whatever you'd put in the description box. I'd zip them up and I'd put them on Mega Upload, which was, I don't know what would possess anyone to download an MP3 podcast from Mega Upload, but that's what I did. So I was looking around in my email. Oh, hang on. There we go. I was looking around my email last week, and I found Hemrock's first email that he wrote, which was, I'm pretty sure, in response to that first podcast ever. Now, mind you, this was a long time ago. This was not, video game podcasting was around at this time, but not everybody was doing it. There were only a few of us out there. And to put it in perspective, over on RetroWare TV, if you remember the Ben and Derek Random Show, their first episode went up the day after my first episode went up. So it's quite a long time ago. Now I'm checking out my email box right now. Give me a second here. I'm kind of struggling to find it. Wait. You know what? I got pages. I got to go to the next page. That's it. We're back to 2016. Jump back on the page. Back to 2013. Woo! Here we go. He wrote this email on January 26th, 2009. Let's go back. And he writes, Tiger Claw TV. Like most others, I first heard of you on RetroWare TV. I enjoyed the Awesome Possum episode, as well as the Romcheck Veil video. Nice bear reference, by the way. So I decided to listen to the podcast on your site. I think you have great potential, and I want to encourage you to keep up the videos and the podcast. I'm reminded of one of my absolute favorite podcast shows of all time, the Retro Nintendo podcast. Excuse me, I read that wrong. The Nintendo Retrocast. Whew. I'm not sure if you've ever listened to the Nintendo Retrocast with Mike and Jeremy, but it was an upbeat, funny, yet relaxing, hour-long discussion about all about the Nintendo Entertainment System. Unfortunately, they stopped producing the cast in the summer of 2007, if I remember correctly. Part of the reason I enjoyed the Retrocast so much is because the hosts worked well together, and the witty banter produced between the two and occasional guests was entertaining in itself, even if they got off topic. I'm not sure this is possible, but it'd be cool if you could find a co-host for the show, which I tried. It would probably lessen the work you have to do in editing and producing the podcast, as you could take turns with your hosts or hosts. Another suggestion that's obvious, and I'm sure you've already thought of it, but good podcasts have features and at least some semblance of structure. Yeah, you're right about that. Here's some features I think might integrate well into the show. Some are complete rips from other shows, but you got to start somewhere. Quick disclaimer, these are merely ideas, and I'm in no way trying to force these suggestions down your throat. It's your show, not mine. And he's got a list here. Now, this is one I find interesting. Let's go through the list. Number 1, the game of the week. Review, rant, recommend, etc. Concerning a particular game of your choosing. Preferably a retro game from the 8-bit to 16-bit era. Maybe even a few early PC games from the late 80s, early 90s. Number 2, eBay Watch. Discuss current eBay deals. That's a good idea. I should go back to that. Number 3, good finds. Talk about the items you or your hosts have recently found at garage sales, thrift stores. Number 4, YouTube video of the week. Mention a video game related YouTube vid that you've enjoyed. Number 5, contest. I think you're already working on this category, but it'd be cool if you had a contest weekly or whenever your next podcast comes out, and give small prizes to the winner. Number 6, game you're currently playing. Maybe retro, maybe not, maybe both. Number 7, retro news. Release of any virtual console or retro games that are being remade, or even new retro-like games, i.e. Mega Man 9, which was huge at that time. Number 8, extensive retro game reviews. I suppose this might be a majority of your show. Number 9, listener email, of course. Number 10, memories, funny, notable stories involving video games from your boyhood. Well, I hope at least some of the above ideas were helpful. I wish you the best. Peace, Hemrock. Pronounced Hemrock. Now, here's the reason why I love this email, guys. Because shortly after writing this email, he teamed up with a couple of people he was acquainted with and launched the Retro League podcast, which is also still up and running, though Hemrock has moved on from it. And when I listened to the early episodes of the Retro League podcast, I could hear all of these things, which was cool. Yeah, you know what? TCR would be a heck of a lot better if I employed some of these, but I have so little time for pre-show prep. It would fall apart. I'm afraid if I get too in-depth with the way I structure the show these days, I'll get burned out. And they'll start to... If I get burned out, I think that's the biggest and hardest way the show can take a hit. Because you can tell if you're listening to like a podcast or watching a video or something, and the person just doesn't want to do it, it really shows, and it can be a drag. And that's primarily what I'm concerned with avoiding. But there's some good stuff here. I mean... even now, all these years later, I would love to do contests. The only problem I have with contests is that I don't think these days, I can't imagine a contest bringing in new listeners unless I really put some money down and gave away something awesome. I think a contest would more be like, I have these things, I would like to give them to my listeners as appreciation to the people who are already listening, which I would love to do. I would love to do that. I don't know what I would give out, though. But now that I'm collecting for consoles again, options for that sort of thing are increasing, which is great. I'm enjoying that. So, I don't know. I think the contest he's referring to, at the time, I had a Street Fighter, the movie with Sonny Chiba, DVD, and I was holding a contest to see who got that. That was the DVD. I took screenshots from the introduction of that movie and then made like the intro, the current intro that Tiger Claw TV uses whenever I make videos with the little, cartoon face thing. So that was good times. Let's see. And that was it. That was back in 2009. Jeez Louise. That was a long time ago. That was 8 years ago. Almost 9 years ago. Because it was beginning of 2009 and we're nearing the end of 2017. So, thank you, Hemrock, not just for that email, but for sticking around for all these years. Jeez Louise. It's been all these years, there are no better podcasts out there. I'm so sorry that, that this is what's coming out. Oh boy. Alright, so let's do this, guys. Let's head over to YouTube, where the last week's podcast was posted. I want to get... I want to see what comments we got. I think all of the rest of the comments are from Dumaze, who apparently, it looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, Dumaze, listened in 2 chunks and commented on both of them because they're like a couple days apart. Oh wait, we got comments on the nextround.net as well. Yes. Okay, the nextround.net has comments from Alex Swingle, and then we have Dumaze over at YouTube. So let's do Swingle first. Alright, so he writes, TCR 2010. Excuse me, not 2010. Wow, I messed that up already. Jeez Louise. Oh my gosh. Alright, Alex. I'm going to read your emails, or your comments. We're going to do it slowly, and we're going to do it accurately. Let's get through this together. Here we go. TCR 210. Number 1, at minute 10. I would say no game won Game of the Year. Even if the requirement is simply being released in 2017. Super Mario Odyssey, Shadow of Mordor 2, Zelda's Breath of the Wild, Nier, and Automata, lol, not even to suggest that. I cannot even begin to suggest that they are amazing games for Stage 1 Spectrum Warriors. And if Stage 2 and beyond, Mario wins all day, every day. As a whole, I've been disenchanted with modern AAA games. Yeah, me too. Ones done in the last 5 years, not just PS3 and onward. I suspect it has everything to do with me becoming self-aware as a gamer, and the humble monthly teaching me that the latest craze in Steam is not that amazing. Number 2, at minute 17, Wind Waker is only good if you're not self-aware as a gamer. There is an obscene amount of backtracking and searching into the void for something you didn't know you needed when playing that game. That and the story encouraged me to not play. not play the game. It's worse than Zelda 2. Make mouth sounds of rapidly firing guns. Truths fired. Number 3 at minute 41. Buying 125 bundles from the Bundleverse would be far better than any nostalgic-based dumb idea you're thinking. Then again, this advice is coming from the dude who spent nearly $300 on Skylander toys because they looked cool and were all 90% off their retail price. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. Sorry, man. Not your email, just me catching up. All right. Where was I? But the fact, most would be resold, but the fact remains, I bought dolls to look pretty on my shelf. To answer the actual question, TurboGrafx, so you can be the guy who collects things but don't play. I have a Model 1 Genesis for just that reason. I sincerely don't want to go back to that console because I've had my fill of games I wanted to play on that system. Yet I bought it for $10 at Goodwill with no means to turn it on. It just sits on my shelf looking pretty. I don't think you'll get $125 worth of value playing In the Hunt. It's a decent arcade game for sure, but you shouldn't pay more than $10 based on the gameplay I've seen. Alright, Swingo, I'm going to break you here and respond to what we've gone over so far, because this is the break where you cut it in the middle and split it into two comments. Game of the year. Yeah. Well, what about experience of the year? That's the reason why I expanded it. I'm just like you in that sense. I don't have... I mean, I look at gaming these days, and there's not a whole lot for me. I'm not going to say there's nothing for me, because that's not true. I think I might even say I enjoy, as little as I enjoy AAA games, I think I might say I enjoy them a little bit more than yourself. And correct me if I'm wrong. And here's why. Because I think you and I both look at companies like EA. Like, I'll give you an example. This Battlefront 2 game that everyone's upset about right now because the EA did what EA always does. And they treated their player base like dirt. And they took the loot box system and they just showed without a doubt that they are unequivocally evil. Before they did that, I had no interest in that game. Even when it was just, this is a game that looks cool, I had no interest. Because I know who EA is. I know what happens with games like that. But not only that, I looked at that game, I imagined a best case scenario, and I was not interested. All right? I think we're on the same page on that. But I have been interested in H1Z1. I am interested in PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, even though I haven't dropped $30 yet. In the sale, I just got, what was it I was playing earlier today? I bought Friday the 13th, the game, on Steam. It went down to $20. I picked it up. Death Adder has been talking about it. A couple episodes ago, he talked about it on the Death Adder Super Show. That was enough to push me over the edge. I wanted it. That's a new game. That's a brand new game. How long has Friday the 13th been out? Maybe 6-7 months? Something like that. I guess that's my game of the year, I suppose, is Friday the 13th, right? Because that's a game that came out this year that I bought, and there's not too many of those ever. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm just really tired. So I think the fact that I have a passing interest in a couple of games that have come and gone in recent times might be a little bit more than yourself. Correct me if I'm wrong. However, you could also argue that those aren't AAA titles. Like Grimoire, the first-person dungeon crawler. I know it's super expensive. I know it's not supposed to be very good, but I'm interested. You know, I could, maybe I should buy that instead of In the Hunt. I don't know. Part of me just wants to have a trophy game that I didn't have before, so I can look at my collection and say, hey, this is getting better. I don't know. I'm really examining this need for In the Hunt. I'm really thinking hard about why it is I'm interested in the game and what it is I hope to get out of it when I get it here. So it's an interesting psychological exploration, looking for a trophy piece. I'm kind of jumping all over the place, aren't I? Here, yeah. This is what you said. And you talked about Wind Waker. I have to trust you completely when it comes to Wind Waker because I've never played. I've never played that game. But I think a lot of those games are backtracking, weren't they? Wasn't the Super Nintendo Zelda game a lot of backtracking as well? I don't know. Maybe not as much. I couldn't say. But if I found it for a decent enough price, even if it is a flawed experience, I would still play it. That's a different scenario, though. We're not talking about an overly expensive game. We're not talking about a newly released AAA game. We're talking about a tried-and-true game that some people very much like, that if I found for a reasonable price, I would be willing to try and experience the flaws firsthand. As for TurboGrafx, well, let me ask you this. Okay, this is a retarded question, so I'm not going to ask it. I was thinking, would you say TurboGrafx? So let's say a TurboGrafx was the same price top to bottom as In the Hunt. Which of those two do you think would be the better buy? But I know you, and I know you're going to say neither, so I'm not going to ask the question. So let's go back to your comment. Let's read the second half and see where we get. He writes, at minute 65, auction compared to fixed price in regards to buying expensive games on eBay. I find great humor in seeing video game auctions on eBay. Even more so seeing eBay recommend auctions to people who will get ripped off by putting up an auction at the $1 price tag. An auction is done for price discovery. Retro games do not need price discovery because the sector as a whole... Okay, I'm going to read this slowly because he's using big words and he's starting to lose me because I'm dumb. Retro video games do not need price discovery because the sector as a whole is set at a speculation trend. That means the majority of people are buying and hoarding just to see if the value goes up, and the people who legitimately want the products have to talk to their wife mom to see if their allowance will cover it. All right, taking a break from the email. I'm sensing passive-aggressive shots fired on this one, and I'm okay with it. Back to the email. No sane person is buying any of these games at prices demanded by the sellers. Sure, the games that are $30 or less. Sure, games that are $30 or less, but when we're talking about a $60 JRPG game like a dot hack game, only single player... mess it up again. Only single people or dudes who are filthy rich from working in the tech field will buy them. I know this as being a game seller. My expensive stuff doesn't sell fast, and when they do, the address label is usually Silicon Valley, New York, Arizona, or Washington, aka all the areas flooded with nerds. Just forget auction prices, because the only time you'll have a chance is when the person selling the item does a bad job describing their item or forgets to mention the expensive games in a lot, and you see the photos. And finally, the penalties for refusing to ship an auction is almost non-existent now. If you get Earthbound for $1 plus shipping, someone can just declare the item missing, get a strike, and continue selling. If they get banned, all they need to do is make a new PayPal and eBay account and continue selling, aka no real penalty. I've been robbed a few dozen times this way. Essentially, don't get your hopes up in sniping an expensive game. It can happen, but the odds of it arriving at your house is rarer than winning the auction at a moment in time. At this moment in time. Modern games are way more affordable and should be your real passion, as you've noticed with PS1 and PS2 games. Yeah, you're probably right. I recently bought 10 games and I was legit interested in for a $3 price, $3 a piece at GameStop of all places. A bargain basement price for average games, but you get the point. At minute 74, being able to handle dungeon crawls. No, you can't handle them because you have stage 3 Tism. I have a Tism chart, and you have to match that to a T. It includes your white blob face, for example. But yeah, I agree that games like that are fun in a puzzle mindset. If you wish to see the chart, it explains a lot and goes up to tier 6, also known as the screeching stage. Alright, Swingle. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about me being more interested in modern games than you. Having gone into a GameStop, I think that has raised your modern gamer level, if I might be so bold. But the last time I was in a GameStop was a disaster, but I'll get to that in a second. When I was in college, I went into GameStop a few times, and I got some... excuse me. Wow, that was gross. I apologize. I got some really good deals. I got Metroid Prime for $3.99 when they were dumping GameCube games. That's a good deal, if you ask me. I got most of my Xbox 360 library I acquired that way. And what was the other? I got a few Wii games, but Guilty Gear Accent Core on the Wii for like $4. Yeah, so when GameStop is dumping a system library, that's a good time to go. The very last time I went into GameStop, it was right after work. I'd driven home and I had a dentist appointment, but I was like an hour early for my dentist appointment, so there happened to be a mini mall nearby. I went into a GameStop. However, I had just left work, so I was in like my tie and my nice shoes and, fancy watch, all that stuff. I was looking like I was coming from the office, and I walked into a GameStop with a bunch of like late teens, early 20-somethings, and they looked over at me and they were like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And I was, "What are you doing here?" It's like, "You don't belong in here. Why are you here?" And I was like, I just want to look around. And I walked the perimeter of the GameStop and I left feeling awkward and uncomfortable. It was not a place I was welcome anymore. That much was clear. It's not even to say what was on the shelves or what the prices were or what the policies were. I was not welcome in the store. The people who were in the store stopped talking when I entered and looked around. It was a bizarre experience. And it kind of hurt a little bit. It kind of was like, man, I'm like 10 plus years older than these guys, and it's making them feel weird, and that's making me feel weird. I wish in that moment I could have been like a big jerk and like a big oblivious and just like been loud and obnoxious and asked stupid questions like, "Which one of these is the Xbox? Can I get the Xbox that says 4 on it? I want the PS4 Xbox." And just made him answer dumb questions for like 30 minutes. I thought that'd have been great. But I didn't think of it at the time, and I was really embarrassed. So, I don't know. But so if you can go into that establishment and get good deals and get some good games, then more power to you. Because I've done it in the past. I don't know. I can't do it now. Maybe just not at my local GameStop. Be that as it may, thanks much for writing in, Swingle. And by the way, Swingle, I have noticed that you, at this point, were the only one who answered when I said, "Hey guys, here's a question for you." So I appreciate the comments. Very much so. I seem to remember you mentioning that you called me a retard in here, and I think I missed it. Did you call me a retard? Oh, well. Oh, or was that when you were talking about your Tism chart? Yeah. Send me a copy of your Tism chart. I'd love to see it. Now I called you bluff. Now you have to open up PowerPoint and actually make a chart. Good luck. Tell you what, Swingle, you send me a Tism chart and I will make it the thumbnail on one of my upcoming episodes of TCR. That's a challenge. That is a Tism challenge. We're going to call that episode the Tism Challenge. I've got coffee on my desk. I've got a cup of coffee that I poured early this morning, and it's now lukewarm. But I like it more for some reason lukewarm at this point. I don't usually. I mean, that sounds kind of gross, but it's black. It doesn't have any cream in it, so it can get cold, and it doesn't matter. But it's comforting. It's a comforting thing. Let's see. How far in are we? Ooh, hour and 15 minutes in. I want to do this. I gotta go back and read Dumay's comments. But I want to do a quick quality check and make sure this is coming through okay. All right. I think we're good. It sounds listenable. I've got to get a second pair of earphones. I need to do this with a pair of earphones plugged into my soundboard so I can hear myself in real time what I sound like. So that way if something goes wrong with the audio, then I'll know right away. That's really what I got to do, especially since I paid for like a really nice soundboard. This thing was like $70. And it's been great. It does what it's supposed to do. It's a great piece of machinery. I just feel like sometimes I'm not taking full advantage of it, and I could be. But I don't know. That's technical stuff. Nobody wants to listen to technical gripes and concerns. Let's head over to YouTube. Dumaze has a bunch of comments. He writes, Zelda 2, title page, intro music. It's awesome. Makes me feel warm and fuzzy. Such good times. Also writes, Twilight Princess is better than Wind Waker, but both excellent. Ocarina is unplayable for me now due to the horrible water dungeon. Ruins the entire game. Dumaze, I don't know what the water dungeon is. I feel like I gotta look it up, though. All right, let's go back to his comments. He was like, get Ocarina Master Quest on the GameCube. It's the Ocarina story and stuff, but 100% new dungeons. Or load it onto the N64 EverDrive. All right. Then he writes, I don't care what the poo-pooers say. Zelda Skyward Sword is excellent. Grab your motion pluslu. Wii remote, though. Skyward Sword is what? I seem to remember that being a DS game, Dumaze, but I'm going to look it up right now. Let's see. Zelda Skyward Sword. In the system designed for paying too much for video games. Oh, there it is for the Wii. $40 complete in box, disc only, which is all I need for $20. $32.94 complete in box. That's coming down a little bit. About $30. $30+. Okay. I could do that. Not right now, though. I think I would get Twilight Princess first on the count of it's a little cheaper. But thanks for the heads up. I appreciate it. He also writes, dude, I got shmup advice for Wii. Some really good ones. Not many, but great stuff. Castle of Shikigami 3. Check my channel if you want to see some uber hardcore me playing it. Also, Ultimate Shooting Collection. Then get Blastworks, really cool side-scrolling shmup with the neatest new mechanic I've ever seen. All these you can use the classic controller. And finally, mod your Wii and get the Radiology Noah, the Japan release. That is awesome. You've got some stuff there I have to look up. So here's what I did, Dumaze. I wanted to get something for because I had $9 sitting on the Wii, and I ended up buying a TurboGrafx 16 game called Twin B. It has some Japanese word before that, but that's what I remember, Twin B. It's like a fun top-down shmup, but it has really fluffy, kind of cutesy graphics, but it plays very well, and it's difficult, and it sounds good, and it looks good. I'm glad I bought it. It's the first TurboGrafx 16 game I've played seriously ever. I've played a little bit of Bonk's Adventure over the years, but never more than just testing it out, seeing what the character it looks like and does. I didn't really give that game a fair shake. This was the first time I ever gave a TurboGrafx 16 game a fair shake. Gotta say, I really dug it. Twin B is a good game. Maybe not the best shmup I could have gotten with that money, but given what I knew and what I wanted, that's what I got, and I'm digging it. Now, as far as classic controller usage is concerned, for shmup, that's perfect, because I got that arcade stick that plugs in like a classic controller, and that thing is a beauty. Any Wii owner, I highly recommend looking up, getting yourself one of those arcade sticks, because they work very well. Oh boy. I just took a break in there. I feel like whenever I stop recording and come back, I should play some sort of soundbite, but oh, what are you going to do? I took a pie break. Went downstairs, had some apple pie. Oh man, feels good, tastes good. Let's get back to the comments. We've got a few more. He writes, my advice for the best EverDrive to get the Mega EverDrive. Do not confuse the EverDrive MD. Don't confuse it with the EverDrive MD. The Mega EverDrive, get the top model one. It can do save states. So much fun with that. And before you poo-poo save states, calling it cheating, just have self-control and use them in a non-cheating way. For example, right now I can go downstairs and pull up Castlevania Bloodlines. My save state is pretty deep, but I only ever save at the end of a stage. Then I must make it to the end of the next stage, naturally, or I repeat it. Excuse me. If you treat it as a suspend and have the discipline and not save every 5 seconds, it makes it awesome. Saving in games that have none normally, and saving instead of writing down a password. Dumaze, I gotta say, yeah, go for it, man. Even on the Wii, when you would buy the ROMs, that had some sort of save state on it. Not something you could abuse, but if you quit out and then rejoined it later, it would resume your save file. So that's a kind of save state, right? A primitive, basic, not well, I wouldn't say non-exploitable, but more difficult to exploit version of save states. I use that in Twin B. I use it as a way to maintain my high score. You know, those old retro games that would have, like on the NES, that would have high scoreboards, like Tetris. And the second you powered down the game, you lost your scores. Well, if you use the save states that way, well, then you get to keep them. The only problem is you're talking about $30 and $100. That's a pretty big difference. That's $50 for the privilege of using save states. Is there any other reason apart from save states to get that thing? I don't know, because right now I'm still leaning towards the, what did you call it? The EverDrive MD. That's the one that wasn't as good, the older one. I don't know. If you look at the models, most of the EverDrives have several different models, and it got really confusing for me really fast. But thanks for the heads up. I also, on a side note, I've got no problem with save states. I mean, there's certain games out there that were just designed and released broken for whatever reason. Maybe it was because they were trying to outsmart the American rental market, so they made things harder when it came to the States. Maybe it was just that the difficulty was out of control. A prime example would be Bump and Jump on the NES. Bump and Jump on the NES is an adorable, quirky game that's fun to play. It's got a fun little high scoring system, so you can battle it out. Just like I do with shmups, get yourself high scores and try and push the envelope on how far you can get. But if you actually try and play that game to the end, what you find is a really long game with a limited continue system, and you've only got 2 lives to do it. So good luck. You're not getting through that game legit. Now, I played Bump and Jump on the NES through to the end using, I won't just say using save states, I would say save scumming. That's what I did. I was save scumming. I consider that a win. For that game to be played that way, it's the only way to play it and legitimately win. It really is. Some games are just that way. I'm not talking about difficulty, right? So, an example of the opposite would be Ghosts and Goblins. Ghosts and Goblins is a difficult game. It's tough, but if you know where to go and what to do, it is beatable, right? I direct you to the speedrun video where somebody runs through Ghosts and Goblins twice in 20 minutes and gets the real ending. If you know what buttons to press and where to go, it is beatable. Ask Alex Swingle. He calls that game a puzzle game, I believe, because it's all about memorization. He basically equates it to like the matching game I played with my children when they were very, very young, where we would deal the cards out and they would have to flip them over 2 at a time and try and find matches. There you go. It's Ghosts and Goblins, the home board game. So that's beatable without save states. But I mean, for me, if you want to use save states to get through a game, go ahead. I don't care. I'll never poo-poo somebody for using save states, ever. Because, I mean, they're games. It's not like you're using them to come up with a score that goes on a global leaderboard. I mean, that'd be a different story, but I have no problems with using save states at all, ever, for anything, when it comes to just having a good time. I mean, what? You're having fun. Come on, just have some fun. It'll be fine. And I think that would be the reason I would get it if I were to use save states. It wouldn't be to save scum, although I'm not above doing that. It would be to maintain high scores on games like... that would be interesting. If I had like games I had in physical form. I'm looking over now, like... Hang on a second. There you go. Now I'm holding a couple Genesis games. Arcade Classics, Centipede and Missile Command, which also has Pong on it. I have this in physical form. There's me clacking it against my reproduction of Splatterhouse 2. But something with save states, maintaining that high scoreboard, might be worth it. And then my physical copy would then become unplayed. I don't know. That'd be interesting. I have a feeling I wouldn't put that much effort into it, to be honest with you. What else we have? He also writes, if you like the Ultima games, then Ultima 4 Quest of the Avatar on the NES is amazing. A lot of fun. I beat it, and I had a blast. Excuse me. Way better graphics than on the computers, and the chat interface was simplified so as to make it quite playable compared to the original. No noobed down, just enough to make it awesome. However, Ultima Exodus 3 on the NES is pretty crap. I beat it too, but it's very primitive. Funny thing you can do in Quest of the Avatar on original games at NES is if you find the skull of Morndane, you can use it and it will kill every living thing in the entire world, including Lord British, all monsters, NPCs, and everyone. At this point, your quest has failed and you'll need to reload your save. I gotta say, Dumaze, I might have to look that up on YouTube. I want to see what that looks like. And on a side note, anyone out there listening, Ultima 4 Quest of the Avatar for the PC is still free on GOG. You can head over to GOG.com and get a copy of the PC version for free. Dumaze writes, Ultimate Sonic Collection on the GameCube too. Look there as well. I think there he was talking about, we were still talking about, were we talking about Phantasy Star or what? Or was that just collections? I don't know. He writes, those crappy Retron systems have all the inconvenience requiring you to use the original carts, plus all the bad stuff about emulation, like compatibility issues and glitches. Yeah, I know, man. I know. Dumaze also writes, your question about games with special chips working in them, working or not on Retrons, there's no reason why they should not work, as it's emulation. For example, Star Fox works on emulators. I have tried, as long as the emulators in Retron are competent, then it will work. So it either could or could not work for any given game. Gotta check compatibility list or get an FPGA system if you want it all to play as original, but still get the HDMI output. Excuse me. That big piece of pie took the wind out of me. Alright, holy crap, Super EverDrive brand new is $86 at Kirk's only. Less shipping. At that price, I really can't afford to sell it just yet to get the SD2 SNES. Not in the budget at the moment, but that's a hell of a good price for a new one. Well, if you ever think of letting any of those EverDrives go, any of them, just give me a buzz. I can't promise that I'll be your buyer, but I would love to hear your price and take it under consideration. And, maybe, you never know, maybe we could work out a deal. If not, best of luck. Enjoy all those games you got, man, and thanks for all the comments. I appreciate it every single week. All right, let's see how we're doing. We are killing it in time. 1 hour and 27 minutes. So whatever it is that brought you guys here, 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 45 seconds into the podcast, I want to say just thanks for choosing to spend some time here with me. I sincerely hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. And I would also like to say, wherever you are in your life, keep your head up. Just keep doing the best you can do. I'm rooting for you. I really am. All right? I will see you guys next week.